Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Strange Appalachia. And tonight, Charlie and I are going to be discussing jacktails. Jacktails are sort of an interesting cultural phenomenon in Appalachia, being that they originally started off in England, in that area, and they came over, and a lot of the settlers and people of English descent and maybe even German descent have carried these tales down through the years, and a lot of them really haven't changed, other than the fact that in England, these Jack tales, a lot of times Jack would have some dealings with a king or with a lord, and here in Appalachia, of course, there are no kings and there are no lords, but a lot of times Jack has a dealing with a sheriff or with a mayor. So they've adapted that way, but they're still interesting and sort of opposed to the normal what you would think of as a fairy tale. There's not really a lesson that goes with a lot of them. It's just basically Jack gets himself into some trouble by being lazy or something like that, and then outsmarts his way out of it. So, Charlie, you want to throw anything in on that?
Yeah, Jack had he's got a rich history. He slayed giants, climbed a beanstalk, did a lot of cool stuff like that. His most well-known tale here in the Appalachian Mountain is the one where he bested three devils. He first thing that happened was St. Peter came to his house and asked for something to drink, and it said that Jack was never nice about anything in his life, but he gave Peter something to drink, and he let him eat and rest there. I don't know why he felt sorry for Peter, but he did. And so Peter said, "Since you were so nice to me, I'll grant you three wishes." And so the first wish he asked for was that he had a rocking chair there, and he wanted to be able to command anybody to sit in it would be stuck there, and the chair would rock violently until he said stop. And Peter was like, "Well, that's a weird wish, but okay." The second one, he had some rose thorns, and he wanted once he gave a command, these rose thorns to come to life and wrap up and attack anybody that came on his property. And Peter said, "Well, that's a weird wish too, but I'll grant it." And the last thing he wanted, he had a set of billows that he wanted them to pump violently whenever he gave a command, and wouldn't let anybody let go of them. And so Peter said, "Okay, that's what you're getting." So then the devil came along, or a devil came along to claim Jack's soul. And Jack said, "Well, I'm not really ready to go, so let's sit down in these rocking chairs and take a rest." And so the devil sat down, and when he did, he gave the command. And so the devil couldn't get up. And so he told Jack, "Let me up." And he said, "Not until you promise you're going to leave." And so the devil promised to leave, so he let him up, and the devil left. Well, then a bigger devil came along, and when he stepped on the property, Jack went ahead and told him to the vines to wrap him up, and the devil couldn't escape. And so he told him that he would let him go if he promised to leave the property and never come back. So he did. The devil honored his word and left. And then the last devil showed up, was the biggest devil. And when he showed up, Jack didn't really have a good reason to tell him he couldn't go, but he said, "I have some unfinished work that I would like to do." And the bigger devil said, "Well, I've seen the way you treated my two younger devils. That's not going to work on me." And he said, No, funny business. Blatantly lied to the devil. "If you come over here and help me pump these billows and get my work done, I'll go with you." And so as soon as the devil laid his hands on the billows, Jack gave the command and basically wore the devil out. And so the devil promised to leave and never bother Jack again. And so when he did, it was all over. Well, time came for Jack to die. He went to heaven. And when he walked up to heaven, St. Peter met him at the gate and said, "Jack, this ain't your place." He said, "Well, what do you mean? I was good to you that one time." And he said, "You were, but that's the only good thing you ever did." He said, "You didn't live up to what you were supposed to live up to, so you're not welcome here." So Jack approached hell. And when Jack got to hell, the devil saw him coming and was like, "Jack, you're not allowed to come in here." And Jack said, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" And he said, "Well, I don't care what you do, but you're not coming in here." And so Jack said to the devil, "It's at least cold out here. Can I at least get a piece of coal from hell to keep myself warm?" And the devil said, "Well, He said, "You were pretty smart up there. You definitely tricked the three of us. So here's your piece of coal." And so supposedly, when you see weird lights in the woods at night, that's Jack walking through the forest with his coal. And they actually even take it one step further. They say he carved out a turnip and dropped the coal in a turnip. Some stories do, and so that would be where the modern day jack o' lantern comes from. Hence the name jack o' lantern. It's Jack's lantern through the forest at night, and it's supposed to keep devils at bay because they're terrified of Jack. So it's a pretty good story, and that one is a definitely an Appalachian cultural phenomenon right there. It doesn't seem to really predate Appalachia. It seems that it was made up in Appalachia, although some of the elements were taken from English and Irish mythology.
Right. There's that story right there. I think the first time I heard it, a guy at a storyteller came to a scout event and told it around a campfire, and I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and he told it slightly different, and he didn't tell it in the context of a jack tale. He told it as basically a ghost story for lights on one of the local mountains. So that's an interesting story because I'd never heard it told as a jack tale. So that was definitely interesting. The one thing I wanted to point out here, um, and I'll go ahead and throw this out. I don't know any specific jack tale other than the ones that are well known, like Jack and the Beanstalk, things like that. But I was researching this, and there's several different jack tales that I found, but none of them really made sense, I guess is the way to say it. But it seems like throughout just about every culture in the world, or every culture that has known storytelling, oral storytelling histories, there's some form of a jack tale that's out there. Like I said, the jack tale itself sort of traces back to England, but even in the German mythology, there's tales that are similar to jack tales, but they're tales about Hansel, hence the Hansel and Gretel things,
Yeah.
and they're sort of interchangeable. They all seem to have about the same story. It just interchanges who the main character is. So I found that pretty interesting.
I know that Jack is very, very popular in the Appalachian Mountains as far as a story to revolve around somebody. The classic one's Jack the Giant Killer, where you hear him say, "I killed 7 in one blow," and he's talking about flies, but the king thinks he's talking about uh, giants, and so they hire him to kill 7 giants. Jack and the Beanstalk, where he basically gives his mother's cow away for magic beans, and he ends up being better for it in the end. You also get a version of Rip Van Winkle that was Jack.
Right, I've heard
And
that.
a lot of times, Jack is a name associated with the devil. Old Jack, you'll hear people call it that sometimes.
Hmm.
So it's definitely a cultural phenomenon. And any story, any heroic stories probably had a Jack assigned to it at one point in time.
Right. Another interesting thing that we've talked about this, not on our podcast, but just me and you talking, is that supposedly all of these Jack tales, the Jack is the same Jack. So it's not like you've got one Jack that's off, climbing a beanstalk, another one that's killing giants, and another one that's tricking the devil. It's the same guy that somewhere along the way has done all of those things. So
Right.
that's an interesting thing as well.
Well, it's a reoccurring character, and once people get comfortable with him, they don't want to hear about any other character. I mean, it's the same thing we run into with in modern days with like Star Wars or the Avengers. You know, you want to know the same characters over and over. You want to know their stories, and so even go back to Norse mythology with Beowulf. There's a lot of stories. We have 3 main Beowulf stories, but there's a lot of other stories out there that circulate about Beowulf. And they may not have been anything to do with Beowulf originally, but it's a name that got assigned to these stories because Beowulf was a hero that was bigger than life. The same thing with the Jack Tales. You've got these stories, and people really like Jack, and so they'll substitute whatever the original person's name was for Jack because they think that it would help his mythos or his mythology.
Right. And like I said, a lot of times these Jack tales are basically just Jack being lazy, or Jack did something that was not intelligent. He did something that everybody's going to make fun of him for. But through his use of wit and some pretty good tricks in a couple of occasions, like you were talking about tricking the devil, he ends up coming out ahead of these bad decisions through whatever form that takes. Like with the devil story, he lives a terrible life, but he ends up immortal because of it. Because he doesn't really go to either afterlife, heaven or hell. So he finds a way to come out ahead. Whether it's through luck, trickery, or a little bit of both.
I really like it that he's even into like nursery rhymes and stuff. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack and Jill went up the hill. He's really embedded in culture a lot deeper than we think it is. I know Hollywood here recently had released a movie. Not I say recently, it's in the last 15 years, but Jack the Giant Killer, and kind of the story of how Jack goes to an upper realm and fights an army of giants. Not the greatest movie I've ever watched. It's entertaining. I wouldn't watch it again, I don't think. But even in our modern culture, we're still trying to find ways to make this Jack guy popular.
Right, and I think he's been in several other movies and TV shows and such as that. But like you said, they're all just sort of middle of the road movies. None of them have really jumped up to any big popularity, which is a little weird because like you just pointed out, they sort of permeate all through the culture. So it's maybe just not telling a new story. Everybody sort of knows what's going to happen.
It could be.
No interesting twists to it, or whatever.
It could be us being kind of spoiled as a society too.
That's true.
It used to be that if a guy showed up with a flute in your village, it was a big deal, and everybody would come from the countryside to hear this guy play a flute. And now, even big blockbuster movies, we're not even willing to break them out on the first weekends a lot of times. We'll wait. I wait for it to come out on video. So it could be just us being spoiled as a society.
It's very true.
So that's all I got for Jack this week, man.
I was going to say kind of a short episode this week, but, like I said, we could sit here and tell Jack tales all night. But, they're like I said, like we sort of mentioned, they're all sort of the same. Jack does something dumb, gets lucky, comes out ahead for it.
Yeah, I really like the cultural phenomenon part of it myself.
Yeah,
that's what I deal with. So
I think that's sort of interesting that we talked about doing Jack tales earlier, and we both sort of went with the cultural aspect of it rather than look at telling the actual Jack tales. I think that's sort of interesting because we actually didn't discuss that.
Yeah, well, the culture aspect, that's the interesting part. The Jack tales themselves are things that we've heard, and every culture that's told a Jack tale has kind of woven their own identity into it. Some cultures have Jack as a farmer or field worker. You get back to medieval times, Jack was a peasant. When you get into the Appalachian Mountains, a lot of times he's a coal miner or a forester of some sort. He works with plants, trees, and logging things. So especially the coal miner thing. It really rings true that whatever culture he's in, that's the identity he takes. And so that's part of where his appeal really is he's kind of a every man's man, who's kind of tired of being told what to do all the time.
Yeah.
And, he does have a lazy streak, but he's also, he's obviously highly intelligent, highly capable. And so maybe the lazy streak comes from where he's doing something that bores him to death, and so he's trying to find a better way to do things. That's one of his huge appeals, is that he's an everyman that can rise above the situation he's in.
Right. Well, like you said, that's sort of all I've got for the week. So, we'll go ahead and sign off. As always, you like what you hear, like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know any ideas you've got. I will say we've got a couple of investigations that we've got lined up here in the next 3 months or so, I guess, that we're going to hope to hit pretty hard. So I think you guys will enjoy those. They're more of the instead of the cryptids and things that we've been looking for there with our first couple of investigations. This is more related to the ghost side of things. I think both the ones that I know of are ghost related. So, anything you want to say about those before we sign off?
Yeah, we're going out to these places. We're going to start looking for ghosts. Kind of don't expect the same thing you see on TV with the ghost hunters, where we're in rooms trying to talk to disembodied spirits. Hold on just a second. Sorry about that. I've still got strep throat and I'm coughing pretty bad, but don't expect us to be, in these rooms trying to talk to these things and trying to get flashlights to flash back at us or anything like that. Basically, we're going to show up. We're going to give the area a good looking over. We're going to talk to the witnesses, the people that know these areas the best. We're going to find out where their activity happens, and then we're going to go to those areas, and we're just going to see what happens. I mean, my goal is not to make anything happen. I'm not trying to call up spirits or anything like that. I just want to see what's going on and see if any of this stuff that's happened to these people will happen to us as well. And if it does, it'll give us something to actually sink our teeth into and to kind of investigate. I found most of the time when I used to do ghost hunting in the past that a lot of times it was just people sitting in dark rooms, talking mumbo jumbo to things that aren't there, and very little ever happened. But I'm really looking forward to going out and kind of getting a feel for these areas and just to see, what could be causing it or if there's anything else it could be. Because my first thought when I see this is that it's not really a ghost.
Right.
For it to be a ghost would be something crazy. I mean, the fact that no one can even tell me what a ghost is, that kind of blows my mind. But I'd like to get out there and just to see what these other people are experiencing and see if there's any way we can, recreate it or catch it on film.
Right. And I think the other thing on that same note I want to throw out is, you're watching these big shows on TV with all these ghost things, and they've got thermal imaging cameras and they've got all this technology that would be nice to have and everything. We don't have that, so literally what you're going to get is our experiences and what maybe one or two cameras might be able to catch, because we don't have all this fancy stuff to say, all right, we're adding energy to this area and the spirits are trying to communicate with that energy and here's what we think it means. What you're going to get with us is, well, we were sitting there and we saw this, we heard this, we got this door opening on camera, or guys, we sat there all night and nothing happened. That
Yeah.
type of thing. Don't expect thermal imaging cameras to come out of nowhere.
Don't expect us to provoke anything either.
Yeah, we're not there. We both sort of make fun of that type of show. We're not there to provoke anything. We're not there to make these entities, if there are anything there, like you said, who knows what a ghost even is. We're not there to make those things upset or get anything riled up so whoever owns that can deal with it later. That's not what we're there for. We're there to see if we can make something weird happen or something strange happen.
Yeah, I mean, when we first got this thing together, I said, I want to go out to these areas and see what's going on. That's exactly what I want to do. If you tell me your whatever is haunted, I want to go there and see why is it haunted. Maybe it could be something as simple as, you've got open magnetic lines or open electrical lines causing magnetic interference with people, and I mean that's a legit thing, you know. Maybe I know that there was a reported haunted house one time in Big Stone that had a creek running underneath it, and what people were actually hearing was this free flowing water under this house.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I've
that's
heard
pretty.
that. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
you know, it didn't have anything to do with actual ghost or whatever. So
All right. Well, I know we sort of signed off before and then got into another discussion, but again, I think that's all we've got. So, guys, as always, appreciate you all listening to us. Leave us any feedback you've got or any ideas you have, and we'll be more than happy to listen to them.
yeah, guys, appreciate it. Thank you.